Hey there, my friends. Frederick here. Welcome to the fourth and final part of my series, Making a Track Start to Finish. If you haven't seen parts 1 through 3, the link is in the description. In this segment, we're going to master the track all in the box using Magix, Sequoia, and various plugins. Okay, let's get started. So the first thing that I like to do here in Sequoia is open up the 2-track master setup as one of the defaults, and then I go in here and I take out all of these plugins that load by default on the master bus. One of the best features of Sequoia is its ability to do a mastering project on multiple tracks, like an album, because you're able to use the object-based plugins on every song, on each song, individually. So just mastering one song, Sequoia has a lot of nice features so far as the visualization plug here with the metering, and it has the ability to make DDPs, add ISRC codes. But so far as the EQing and compression and levels, things like this, you could do that in any DAW. Sequoia does sound better. So the first thing that I would do would just be to top and tail the track. And this is the object editor here that I was talking about. So you can load the plugins not only on, if I bring the mixer over here, you can load the plugins on a mixer channel the way that you normally would as inserts, then on the master bus the way you could in any other DAW. But on every track that you have in the session, you can load plugins on the individual tracks. I think Studio One might have a function like this, and maybe you can do that in Reaper too. Now, I'm not sure. It's really great, especially for compiling a whole album together where you can make changes to level out each track. It also has a really nice fade editor here so that you can really come in and make the fades just how you want. It's got a great crossfade editor as well. So just before we get started here, I would want to talk about the concept that we're going to have for how we're going to go about mastering it. There's a lot of different ways that you can master music, and they're kind of specific to genres. Things like techno music and a lot of electronic dance music has a really loud master. Rock or pop music has gotten very loud. Indie rock music is really loud now for some reason. Classical music and jazz music, the dynamics are really left in place. So I'm going to kind of go somewhere between like a pop track that's mastered and compressed to play back on a lot of sources better, but leaning probably more toward like jazz music or classical music. The point is it's going to be more dynamic and open and natural sounding. But we can see here, if we go to our visualization, you can see that there's a lot of dynamics in the track. If we look on our meters here, you can see that the at the height of the track, which is probably around here, let's just skip around here and see what else. The first thing that I would do is to go into the object editor here, go to the effects section and load in an EQ. And the EQ that I like is just a basic isotope equalizer. And because I really just want this equalizer to be as transparent as possible, I put it on the digital algorithm here. The first thing that I'm going to do is preserve as much of the low end. There's not a whole lot of low end in this track anyway. It's not super bass heavy. I like 32 Hertz, and we've got 12 dB per octave roll off there. We'll go to the top end, and 16 will start here, 16 kilohertz, rolling off also at 12 dB. And let's listen and get an idea of what our visualization looks like here. Okay, so the mix is good. I don't want to do something really drastic to it. All I really want to do is get the level up. The thing about getting the level up with using limiters and compressors is that the track will change. Certain things will start to poke out and become harsh and things like this. So the idea is that when you start bringing the level up, to try to get the same feeling of the track, the high end kind of timbre and textures, so that those kind of things don't get crushed or smeared, and basically make the track sound the same, a little better, and louder. Okay, the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to add in a tape simulator. The one that I like is this one from Waves. This one here, Kramer Master Tape Machine. I always go and turn off, make sure that the noise is turned off. It's got a nice preset here in the mastering section that is big and open, and it's usually a good starting point. So let's hear. Now, if I wanted more tape character here, I could take the bias down to normal. I'm going to bring the speed up to 15 IPS here, over biased, so it's the most transparent that it can be. Noise off, wow and flutter off, and I keep the record level and the playback level linked here so that I can up the record level, and it's going to bring the playback level down. And what that's doing is just letting you hit the tape harder to get more tape saturation without getting more level. You could hear how it... So push that far, that's way too much. It gets a little smeary, a little too thick, but just down here. Okay, so the next thing we'll do, I'm going to put in a dynamic EQ. I don't need anything right now, but I'm putting the dynamic EQ in earlier because I know that when I bring in a compressor and definitely the limiter at the end, some of the frequencies in the high end, I'm going to want to pull those back a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and put in a dynamic EQ just to have that later so that I can have an early stage of dynamic EQ to address any of those high-end issues that pop up later. And with this also, we're going to set this to digital, and we're just going to bypass that. All right, so the next thing, we're going to go and add a spatial plugin just to be able to spread some things out in the top end and keep the low end. I like the low end to be very mono. It has a more focused kind of sound. It plays back better on larger systems, especially PA systems. Most PA systems or club systems even are mono. If you have a whole lot of stereo stuff in the bass, it can be kind of weird. The one that I like is the Ozone Imager, and there's a great preset in here that's just called Modern Width. It's a good place to start, and you can see that it's kind of doing what I was already talking about here. It's got the bass. This side is mono. Farther you go down here, and that's making the signal more mono. It's only affecting this band up to 111 hertz. Further you push it here, you're farther out in the stereo field. And so what this preset is kind of doing is it is pulling in the bass from 111 hertz a little bit, making that more mono. And then the high end, it can be more stereo. So we're pushing the high end, spreading that out a little bit. And that's started around here, around 6K. And so if you saw the earlier segments, you know that a lot of the modular synth in particular is super stereo. So it's meaning pan hard left and right, going back and forth between hard left, hard right in alternating notes. So there's a lot of very stereo sounding things happening already. The drums overheads are panned hard left, and you can see here in the spectrum analyzer on the plugin, it's very stereo field anyway. So it's really down here in the bass. Because it's not super low end bass, I'm going to roll this up a little bit higher to around 120 hertz and pull it a little more mono. The low mids will go a little more on the mono side as well, and then we'll push the really high end up closer to about 8K and push it farther out, see how that sounds. You can hear that's all that's really up there. And we're just moving that so that it's not so, it just makes a little more space in the whole mix. And there's that low end. It's got some sub down there, and that's the stuff down there that we really don't want to have too stereo. You can do it. Some people really like stereo bass, and they'll put phasers and chorus on the bass to purposefully make it more stereo. But I don't know, I like the bass to be a little more focused. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to add a compressor. And the one that I like to use is the Alpha compressor from Brainworx Plugin Alliance. I like this one, upward leveling. It's a good place to start because there's a lot of parameters on here and it really gets you going. It always has to be changed a little bit. It's really aggressive in the preset. So the threshold, I pull that back down. Too much gain reduction, and it usually has a ratio here of 1.8, and I'll move that up to, it's got a ratio of 1.2. I move that up to 2, ratio of 2 to 1. So you can see there when the bass starts to come in, we're getting some gain reduction here on our meters of about 4 dB of gain reduction. That's too much. So we'll pull our threshold back. All I want is just about, no more than 2 dB really of gain reduction. So that sounds good. You can hear the bell of the ride cymbal that's starting to poke out a little bit with the compressor on here. But if you hear how much gain this is adding to the track, it's got a gain of 6 dB from the preset there. So we're going to pull that down to maybe about 3 dB. Maybe even less than that. It's like just a couple of dB of gain. So the next plugin that I want to add is the Sonnox inflator. And so the first thing that I was going to do was just go ahead and go to the band split. That's usually how I use it, but let's listen first. Sometimes it's better without that. So we're just bringing the effect in a little here, and I'm going to listen to it without the band split. The curve, I'm not sure what they say in all of that writing there. Yeah, this part at the very bottom, warmer sonic character. That's how I think of this slider here. It just adds warmth. A lot of times on tracks that are really dense, this is too much. It just makes it sound muddy, but this track has a lot of space in it already, so let's see how it sounds. Okay, I'm not sure what all those words say there. There's a lot of words on there. But I think of this middle button here, the band split, is it just, if you've got a track that's really dense and you're pushing up the warmth here, you could engage the band split and it somehow just makes it cleaner. It just sounds more like you still get the warmth, but it cleans it up a little bit, makes it a little less muddy. On this track, I'm not really hearing much difference. If you really listen to the low end, you can hear what the inflator is bringing. It's really making the low end warmer and bigger, a little more level, but not so much level as it is just making it sound just more full. I'll play it and bypass back and forth. You can see what you like. Okay, I like it. I can stay. Okay, so I'm going to add in one more dynamic EQ here, just to give us another level of control over the various bands. So we've gained a few dBs there. We're still pretty far away, and there's still a lot of leeway that we have here so far as what we can push into the plugins to get more level. I like just the good old Izotope dynamic EQ. And with the second one, I also set it to digital. The other thing that I could use besides that dynamic EQ would be a de-esser. A de-esser is really just like a limited band, high frequency limiter. So a de-esser works great on hi-hats or like high acoustic guitars, anything that's got ride cymbals, things like this that are kind of spiky and sort of sound sibilant. You can put a de-esser on that. It doesn't have to just be on vocals, because all it really is just a high frequency band limiter. Because we're so far away here on our target, I'm going to go in here with the McDSP and add the ML4000. And with this, we're just going to bring all of this out. It adds level by itself. And there's a lot going on with ML4000. So it has a preset here that I like. Mastering classical is the one. I start here. And the thing with these presets are they're great because they're fast. You don't have to go into every one of these bands and then set your ratio. This ratio of 1.5 to 1 is nice, a good starting place. Presets are just a good place to start. It's just a quick way to get going. But the thing you wouldn't want to do is just click the preset and be done with it, unless it just sounds good that way. Then there's nothing wrong with doing it. And you can see it definitely does not sound good with the preset. So we pull our threshold all the way back down like this. And with this, we'll put our ceiling to 0.6, something like that. And let's listen now. And if you see what they've got going on here, they've got a gate. I'm going to turn the gate off. We've got this expander and the limiter is the two things that we like. The compressor here is off. We'll leave that off. So we've got a multi-band expander and a multi-band limiter is basically what's happening. We've got no threshold happening here. So we've got a fairly soft knee. If we look here for our crossover, I'm going to bring this band more to the low end. So you can hear it's this band here where things are kind of getting a little bit harsh. Somewhere between 600 hertz or so up to all the way up there where you can really can't hear it anymore anyway. But if we solo this last band, see what's in there. Not much. That's the stuff that we use the imager for to move it out. So now with ML4000, we can use this to control just how much is hitting the final limiter and just the overall level as well. It's really this band here that we've got to look at. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my second dynamic EQ. I'm going to move that after the ML4000. So it's this right around 1K here that kind of want to look at. Bring our Q in a little tighter, and it's around 950. And also this one here, we could make the Q wider and bring it so that it would grab up here as well, but I'd rather keep the bands tight, the frequency bands tight, so it doesn't affect as much. It's a little lower than that right here. Okay, so let's add our final limiter. One I like there is the maximizer. So with the maximizer, I like this algorithm here, the mode in IRC4 in the modern algorithm. I don't know exactly what all those are, but that one sounds good. So the way that I like to do it with this limiter to see what the limiter is bringing is to bring the ceiling down to the same level that we're going to put our threshold. So we can start with just a threshold of -2 and so if you match the ceiling and the threshold, you can bypass the plugin and hear level matched exactly what the limiter is doing to the sound. So if we take out all of these other plugins in the chain, so let's say if we didn't have so much other plugins giving gain earlier in the chain, we could just bring our threshold down here to say -7, because we're probably going to need about 7 dB of gain overall, and bring our ceiling down to match it. And at this point, you could see, you would be able to hear exactly what the limiter is doing to the sound without having the level affected. So let's hear how that sounds. Because the track is really not a very loud track in general, even at 7 dB of limiting, it's not really affecting the track so much. So if we pull this down more, let's listen again. You can definitely hear it there. If you listen to the snare drum, just kind of the top end of the snare drum with the limiter in, it gets a little more dull. It doesn't sound quite as vibrant. Without the limiter, you can hear the reverb on the snare drum, the reverb tail on all the snare drum hits. But that's sort of the thing with mastering. We've just kind of got to split the difference of getting the track to where it needs to be without sacrificing too much of the sonic character. So we can pull our threshold back up and add in some more of these plugins. Let's start with our threshold back here at just -2, because we're going to get some gain with the other plugins. And we'll just add these in one at a time. So we'll bypass all the plugins that we have so far and just hear what that's doing to our level. So we're definitely getting somewhere. We're going in the right direction. Let's add our dynamic EQ back. And now we'll bring in the final limiter. So let's take our final limiter and 2 more dB. Let's find another spot on the track here. So I don't want to go anymore on the limiter here. That's 4 dB already. Let's bring our ceiling back up and see what kind of level that's giving us. Okay, it sounds good. At this point, the way that I would do it is I would work 3 different parameters for the gain. One would be the threshold on the ML4000, the gain on the alpha compressor, and the Oxford limiter. So between the Oxford limiter and the alpha compressor, the makeup gain in particular on the alpha compressor here, it's only giving us 2. We've got a lot that we could go with that. And then the adding in more of the effect on the Oxford inflator. So I want to say one more thing about the ceiling here that I'm going to use. This 0.5 dB ceiling. I think that's good for streaming services and things like this. You're going to put it on Spotify. It works okay like that. If I was going to burn a CD, you could take the ceiling all the way up here to like 0.1. Would be fine. Could be a little louder. If you're going to put it on YouTube, the ceiling that I like to use for YouTube videos is down here at 1.5. So that's given a lot of headroom. If you're doing a mastered for Apple Music, if it gets kicked back, one of the easy ways to fix that is just to take the threshold down, the ceiling down on your final limiter. Just knock it down a dB. Instagram or any of those socials like this, a good ceiling is 0.2. I've found these are just my own values that I've kind of worked out from posting something on Instagram and it clipping and bringing it down and trying to keep it as loud as it can be so that it plays back on a phone, which is what most people are listening on. And I like to err on the side of if I only have one way to go, I would rather master it for quality playback as opposed to I really just want it to sound good on earbuds and an iPhone. if I have to sacrifice something, it's going to be the earbuds and the iPhone over a master that plays back really well on a hi-fi system. So this high-end band with the parts that I played there on with the wood and those shaker stick things with the tambourine. Go back and see part one of this where I tracked the drums playing that as an overdub. Those are getting kind of loud now when everything else is starting to drop out of the mix. The compressors and the limiter are starting to push that out more as the other things aren't engaging the compressor. It's being affected by the more high-end stuff. So I'm going to use the dynamic EQ, the second dynamic EQ here, just to pull the high end down a little bit. We're going to pull our frequency band back a little. We're going to keep this at a Baxandall curve. And pull our gain down a little. And that seems it seems pretty drastic, 4 dB there on this Baxandall curve, but when the high end is not affecting it, it's not gonna, it'll stay out of the way, which is the nice thing about the dynamic EQ. We can do the same thing by coming up here to our first dynamic EQ and maybe try to pull a little of the high end out before it's going into the compressor as well. Okay, I think I'm going to take the Kramer tape machine out. After all of the other things with the compressor and the inflator, the tape seems to be adding something that's just kind of making the high end a little too much. Tape machine, it does make it more exciting, but I think it just sounds more natural without it in there, so we're going to leave that one out. Okay, I think I'm going to leave it right there. That seems like a good level. We're not really quite up to our -10, -10 RMS. It's a little under that, but the track seems, with kind of having a more ambient bed under it, it just seems like this is where it needs to be. If I did want to go one more step, so far as trying to get level, I'll just show the way that I would do that. I would go down here and add one more plugin, which would be the Magix MUNITION. And I would move it to before the final compressor. And the way that I would do that is it's got a optical compressor, 2 optical compressors, and a limiter, and a soft clipping section. And the way that I would do it would be to set it to stereo here as opposed to mid-side, have the compressors off and just use the limiter at the end, set this output here so that our meters are showing the output. We're going to set our target RMS here for -12, -10. And then we're going to set our output here to say -0.5 dB. And then what we're going to do is we're going to work this threshold here to get our meters up to around 0. If we get our meters hovering around 0 here, then that will give us an RMS of our target value that we set here. Okay. The other thing that I want to do is go into this section here and put this ceiling to -0.2 or somewhere around there. So let's go back to a more frequency intense section of the song. And you can see we're getting up there now. After I listen to this on several different systems, I might listen to it in the car, listen to it on a few different speakers. I will come back and I might add in this ammunition. I'm going to leave it in the chain, just bypassed, because if it just doesn't seem like it's loud enough, this is the way I would do it. So far, this is going to be our level. And I'll bring the ammunition in and out so you can hear it. And because we went in and we changed, we went ahead and put a ceiling here, we could have this ammunition after the maximizer. I said I was going to bring it before, but after is fine too. We can drag it up here and we can listen to the difference either way. Without the ammunition. Okay, it's nice. We could have the ammunition after the maximizer, since it already has its own limiter ceiling locked in here. The level's probably going to seem even a little more because the Ozone 8 maximizer, that limiter, I think we set, what did we set the, we had the threshold here at 0.5. It might sound about the same so far as overall level between it being before or being after. I think I like it before. Something about having the ozone limiter after it kind of keeps it a little bit more tight. All right, so I think I like it better this way. The ammunition after the maximizer feeding the ammunition seems a little, it doesn't add as much overall level as the other way around, the ammunition into the maximizer. Somehow it seems just a little more contained. Okay, but this is basically how I would do it. I would listen to it, like I said, on several other systems and in the car and things like this. If I had a whole album of all this music, the master would definitely change because there would be things that I would be doing to make it flow in and out of the tracks before and after to mesh with that. But that's it. That's how I would do a master in Sequoia, all in the box, which is the way that I would prefer to do it. I don't have any feeling like I want a bunch of hardware. All of these plugins are great. It sounds really good, and can repeat it every time. So that's how I would do it. Mastering in the box with Sequoia. Okay, let's do a playthrough. I think that about does it for this track. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and if you found this content useful, consider joining me over at my Patreon. Your support there is most appreciated and helps me to continue making this content. As always, thanks for listening and have a great day.